everybody. This is Bill Kelly at BioInformatics. I'm the president and co-founder here at the company. And it's nice to see a few familiar names in attendance today. So thank you for joining us, but also some people that are new to us. So welcome to you as well. Today, for the next half hour, we're going to talk about our latest report, Lab Budgets and Sources of Funding in 2017, the market outlook for the United States, Europe, and Asia. All participants are currently on mute. You can send us an instant message if you're having any problems with the audio or to submit questions. And you'll see a little icon where you can virtually raise your hand and we'll unmute your line. There will be 2 times when we'll break up the presentation to answer any of your questions, one about halfway through and one at the end. So let's go ahead and get started. Bioinformatics and our SDI division combined to form a full-service market research firm. And for over 20 years, we've been conducting market research for companies that sell products and services to life science markets. In fact, we focus exclusively on scientific markets, which sets us apart from other market research firms that cast a much wider net. We know your markets, we know your products, and there's hardly a question that we have not asked the scientists about what you need to know about your products and services. What our clients appreciate about us is our ability to speak the language of science and artfully design surveys, focus groups, and interviews to construct reports that will help you launch new products, refine your marketing or sales strategy, and measure customer brand awareness and satisfaction. We have instant access to an online panel of over 75,000 scientific experts, the Science Advisory Board at scienceboard.net, which we manage internally. It was founded in 1997 and continues to grow. This network of scientists provides a forum for researchers to connect with one another and to provide survey feedback to manufacturers about their products and services. One of the most common complaints we hear from you, our clients, is about how difficult it is to find qualified respondents who are knowledgeable about a particular technique or a particular instrument. Here's where you can count on our reports as we reach out to this highly segmented database to get the respondents and expertise needed for each study. For instance, for the 2017 Outlook report, it's absolutely necessary for our respondents to have some budget authority or influence, and it's these types of things that we know about our panel. Finally, we've conducted market research for almost all of the major suppliers in the industry. I would encourage you to check out our website to see our client list. In fact, many of your companies are on it. So today, we're here to talk about the 2017 budget report. And I'd like now to hand over the mic to our Vice President of Publications and our Senior Science Advisor, Dr. Robin Rothrock, and Dr. Madeline Deno to walk through some of our high-level findings.
Thanks, Bill, and welcome, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us today. So, what are we going to be talking about? Let's start with establishing a framework for understanding the current economic landscape as it relates to the life sciences. We're going to be focusing our attention on the United States, Europe, and Asia. As you can well appreciate, it is an increasingly dynamic and fluid market. No region acts in isolation, or in other words, the world is not flat. Let's start with the United States. The health of the life science tools industry is directly tied to annual investments in research and development made by governments, private industry, and investors. The economic climate, political pressures, societal needs, and technology all affect the outlook for funding life science research, drug discovery, and development in 2017. As we have discussed in other forums, the overarching theme in the U.S., both for academics and for pharma biotech, is uncertainty. For academics, uncertainty in levels of funding and research priorities is an issue due to conflicting statements from the new administration. Additionally, key staff positions at many key funding agencies remain vacant. And then if you stop and think about, well, okay, there's uncertainty in when you're thinking about academic funding, what are the sources of uncertainty for pharma biotech? There are tremendous rumors of change when it comes to regulations as well as laws that will affect the pharmaceutical industry. Despite concerns about the ability of the FDA to continue to approve drugs and inspect facilities at an appropriate pace due to staffing issues, the drug pipeline itself appears robust, in addition to a continuing support for strong demand for generic drugs in the U.S. In our study, both academic and pharma biotech researchers report budget growth for fiscal year 2017. However, academic researchers expect a decrease in fiscal year 2018. Somehow, innovation survives, and a surge of interest in new and efficient approaches such as CRISPR-Cas9 and next-generation sequencing have infused hundreds of millions of dollars in venture capital into the market. Next, I'd like to introduce you to Dr. Madeline Deno, who will tell you about the situation in Europe and in Asia.
Thank you for the introduction. So the United Kingdom will remain part of the European Union for another 2 years, but Brexit has cast a pall over pan-European research collaborations and the work status of European scientists working in UK labs. The government of Prime Minister Theresa May has promised to spend an extra £4.7 billion on R&D between now and 2020 to 2021, and the final year's £2 billion boost will represent an increase of almost 20% in total government R&D spending. Less clear, however, is how these funds will be allocated due to a restructuring of the way British research is organized, or how much will support basic life science research. The proposed increase may still not be enough to offset the impending loss of EU research grants from the Horizon 2020 program. Regardless of Brexit, the European Commission has commissioned 8.5 billion euros to be released during 2017 into research and innovation, following an update to the work program of Horizon 2020. This includes 658 million euros for R&D related to health, as well as another 716 million euros related to the bioeconomy. The EU is predicting euro area GDP growth of only 1.6% in 2017. The tepid growth and rise of anti-EU political parties in France, Germany, and the Netherlands make the outlook for 2018 and beyond uncertain. And now on to Asia, starting with China. Asian markets in general, and China in particular, are likely to grow in 2017. Although the Chinese economy has slowed down over the last several years, the country's commitment to scientific research remains strong. According to Nature, China now invests more in scientific research than the entire EU, and Chinese researchers feature on around 1/5 of the world's most cited papers. Japan remains stagnant, but Singapore and South Korea continue to grow, both in public and private sector investments in life science. To summarize from a global perspective, we really have been stuck in a new normal for life science research. I'm going to turn it back over to Robin now.
Thanks, Madeline. In our study, we asked a series of agreement scale questions to quantify customer sentiment. In this slide, we can see the responses of U.S. scientists, which can be characterized somewhere between pessimistic to downright gloomy. The situation is much the same in Europe. However, scientists in Asia have a far more positive outlook than their U.S. and European counterparts. Given what we've been talking about, the macroeconomic trends that we've discussed directly affect the budgets of individual laboratories. Our report, Lab Budgets and Sources of Funding in 2017, Market Outlook for the United States, Europe, and Asia, explores projected 2017 budgets by region, market segment, and the implications of these findings for the life science tools market. Not to be alarmist, but see how U.S. scientists answered this question on the best case and worst case scenarios for their lab's budget in fiscal year 2017. But despite the seemingly flat growth on the horizon, great science is still being done across the globe. This brings us now to discussing the report scope and the objectives portion of our presentation. But before we do so, we can take a few moments now for a few initial questions. You can send us an instant message or click on the button to raise your hand and we'll unmute your line. If we don't get to your question during this break, we'll have another Q&A session at the conclusion.
Robin, so far we've just got one question. Our participant writes, the best and worst case slide is scary. Is that just scientists being reflexively pessimistic?
I think that when we consider when the survey was being fielded, which was probably in early January, I think that they were definitely reflecting the economic climate. They were reflecting what they were hearing or not hearing in the news. So they may have been more pessimistic than usual, but it was probably a realistic assessment of where they thought they might be. Also, they could have been saying, oh, it could be really, really, really bad. And so if it wasn't that bad, you know, if their worst case scenario didn't turn out to be true, then they could actually be cheerful or optimistic that their worst case scenario didn't come to fruition.
Okay, if there's no further questions right now, we'll go ahead, and I'd like to tell you a little bit about the scope of this report. Listed here are the objectives that we set out for ourselves when we decided to launch this report. I'll give you a moment to read them. There's no need for me to read what's on the screen. We hear you asking these questions or ones like them all the time, and getting those answers has been a daunting task, but I'm happy to report that Robin and Madeline have met these objectives and they've been achieved, and the feedback we've been getting from companies who are already using this report has been very positive. The report includes both secondary and primary research. The secondary research focused on funding in the US, Europe, and Asia includes a review of the relevant councils and funding agencies. But more importantly, a quantitative survey was fielded to life scientists in the US, Europe, and Asia who have budget authority. We received more than 1,000 qualified respondents with a 75%, 25% split by market segment, academic, pharma, biotech. Scientists working in academia and government represent the nonprofit sector, and life science industry, of course, is primarily composed of researchers working in pharma and biotech. Broadly speaking, the questionnaire was designed as follows. We asked a series of questions that get at laboratory funding and budgets. Where are you getting the money from? How does that compare to 2016? what is your average budget for instrumentation, your average budget for consumables. We also ask them to allocate that total budget across overhead and salaries and the total number of the headcount at their lab. We also have a set of questions that examines the techniques that are currently used and how that may change in 2017. And the final set of questions was designed to weigh customer sentiment. Let's take a look at the product categories, and this is how we collected information regarding the budgets. So, as you can see here, we asked questions about how their budget filtered down to these categories of instrumentation and these categories of consumables. And you can see the definitions that we gave for each, what we asked the respondent to think about as the percent of their budget was allocated to each of these techniques. Let's take a look at the techniques. What your customers are doing and the products they're using, you'll see that the techniques are aligned to the instrumentation and consumable product categories. Let's start with cell-based techniques. As you can see, we are covering an extensive list that encompasses both reagents and instrumentation. Likewise, our approach is the same for genomics techniques, and similarly for protein techniques. So how might this all come together in the final report? Here's some examples of the kind of insights you'll receive. The charts are from the 2015 edition of our report, and of course are updated in the latest version. On this side, you can see that we present the size of the average laboratory budget by market segment and region. The next slide of analysis shows how lab budgets are typically allocated across different spending categories, including instrumentation, consumables, and maintenance contracts, among others. Then we show how that money will be spent on different forms of instrumentation and consumables. We drill down even further to show you the expected increases and decreases in the use of specific techniques associated with the products your companies sell.
And finally, we asked the survey respondents what they thought would be the most exciting technological breakthrough on the horizon for their area of research. You know, what new discovery, what new technique was going to make the biggest difference for them going forward. It probably doesn't come as a surprise that CRISPR-Cas9 technology and next-generation sequencing were the most frequently mentioned. But there's a solid second tier of people who are talking about immunotherapy, about stem cell biology, actually an evolution in computational technologies as well. So CRISPR-Cas9 and next-generation sequencing may be at the top of this heap, but there is a lot of dynamic research and new innovation underneath. And so finally, how can this report help you with your planning for 2017 and beyond? Bill?
Unfortunately, market share isn't doled out based on need. It has to be won. And from my perspective, the key to success in this uncertain market is all about share, strategies to protect share and gain share. If the size of the pie is the same, or in the worst case, smaller, as it is in our current market, then the size of your slice is what matters. The sentiment is the same if the pie is growing as it is in Asia. But the tactics are different and are predicated based on the macroeconomic environment. We aim to show you where is the growth by region, segment, technique, and by application area. We want to show you what areas of research are showing funding increases or funding decreases, and how might those funding trends play out at the level of individual labs or programs. And our researchers now pitching their grants to follow the money.
You can use this report to confirm existing assumptions. It can provide the basis for future decisions. It can assist you with forecasting revenues, and it will assist you in pinpointing areas of potential growth. I know that I am preaching to the choir by saying that the foundation of a successful strategy is a detailed understanding of the external environment. This report aims to provide you with that information from a bottom-up and a top-down approach. I'd like to turn the conversation back over to Bill, who will review with you some of the options for obtaining this report.
Just before we get to the final Q&A session, this report is configured to fit your regional focus or to obtain all 3 regions at a discounted price. You can purchase it online at our website. And as a special thank you for attending this webinar, any orders we receive from your companies by May 1st will receive an additional 15% discount. Final questions. If you would like to either raise your hand and we'll unmute your line, or you can submit it by chat, and we'd be happy to answer any questions you have. Robin, we just have one so far.
Okay.
And Greg wants to know, you haven't talked much about 2018, and I know you're probably not going to be able to share too much detail with us, but can you tell us a little bit about what's 2018 going to be like?
The optimistic part of me says 2018 will be better than 2017, but then I was trained in the optimistic school of scientific research. So I think what we can count on going forward is additional and continued uncertainty. I think that in our report, in North America, academic scientists were anticipating that there would be a decrease in the size of their lab budget, but on the other hand, pharmaceutical scientists were anticipating an increase. And I think that pattern is probably true in Europe as well. As Madeline mentioned earlier, scientists in Asia tend to be more sanguine about their future prospects. And I think a lot of that is influenced by, again, as Madeline said, China's continued support for investment in scientific research, their spillover from their huge focus, the Chinese government's huge focus on a precision medicine initiative, and India, although the budgets may be small, they are extraordinarily optimistic about their future prospects.
Thanks, Robin. We have one more. And you mentioned CRISPR and NGS as being what scientists are most excited about.
Mm-hmm.
But is there a correlation between this level of excitement and where our clients will see growth in the next year, year and a half?
I think that in terms of growth, NGS has been, quite widely adopted. I think that our most recent incidence for NGS is in the mid-30s, maybe even inching up to 40%. So this is the percentage of customers or scientists who are using NGS in their research or their work. The number of different applications associated with next-generation sequencing continues to expand. And so that means that there can be increased utilization of NGS by people who are already familiar with the technology, as well as adoption by new customers as the technology infiltrates new areas. And so for one thing to think about is the explosion of interest in single-cell analysis. And one of the things that makes single-cell analysis so powerful is the ability to take very sophisticated partitioning technology to isolate single cells, and then to sequence each one of those cells individually, whether you're looking at the genome or you're looking at the RNA, doing like 3' transcriptome analysis. So it's the inventiveness of scientists who are taking a really powerful tool and using it in new ways that will facilitate growth going forward.
Thank you, Robin. That will conclude our webinar for today. We very much appreciate the time that you've spent with us. On your screen are contacts for any questions that you may have about the report, about our services, or for that matter, if you just want to talk to some really smart people, Robin and her team of analysts are more than happy to spend some time with you. So thanks again, and please enjoy the rest of your afternoon.
Thank you. Bye.